So now we've had a little look at what we need to decline in German for the different cases and the different words that require declension. It's time to have a look at the spelling for each kind of word, each case, and each gender. So it can be daunting at first because we've covered already, I think, 6 tables of variations for definite and indefinite articles, for adjectives, and for pronouns. I think that makes 96 permutations of spelling for those various parts of speech. However, all is not lost because there are patterns that are repeated across these tables. So in general, perhaps the most important thing to remember is that the case must always be shown somehow. We touched on that in the adjective table. Some of the stubs for the examples were mine did not show any particular case. Scroll down. Here there was no particular case shown. The adjective had to make it clear. So if there's nothing shown inside the article, then the adjective is going to need to change. And in general, the case must always be made explicit somehow. So here we have the definite article table. The word the, or this, such, which, yonder, many in English. First thing to note is that the masculine nominative is always taking an R, the feminine is always taking an E on the end, the neuter is always taking an S, and the plural is always taking an E as well. And this is a common pattern. The indefinite table has stub, that is the article does not take any ending for the masculine neutral and the masculine and the neutral here and here. For the accusative, it's the same pattern again, with the exception that you have an E for the accusative. So the feminine is taking E again, the neutral is taking an S again, plural is taking an E, but the masculine accusative is taking an N. So that's the point to remember. You repeat this table, repeat this line in the accusative, but remember the masculine accusative is taking an N. Back to the indefinite article table, same pattern with the exception that this is a stub. So here you've got the EN, the EN here. Here you've got an E, last. Here you've got an E. Here it's a stub. This is particular to this table. And here you have an E to show plural. For the dative and the genitive, you have another set of repeating patterns. So we have an M as the ending for the masculine. You have an M for the ending of the neuter. You have an E for the ending of the feminine and an N for the plural. So this is different in the genitive, but you have the same pattern for these 3 rows. Here an M and an M, masculine and neuter. Here an S with an S on the end of the noun, and here an S with an S on the end of the noun. Here an R for the feminine, and here an R for the feminine. So although these are differences, and here this is different, it's the same pattern repeated for masculine and neuter. Different permutation in the genitive versus the dative, but it's the masculine and neuter share those changes. And the feminine is just always the same. And a plural dative, we're taking an N and putting an N on the end of the noun. And the plural genitive, we're adding an R to the article. Scrolling down, here's our EM, and here's our EM again, repeating here and here. Here's our ER, here's our R, Here's our ES and an S, ES and an S, and ER. You see this pattern is repeated for the indefinite articles as well. And again, for the plural, taking EN and an N to show it's plural, and ER for the genitive. Same pattern. For adjectives, we have a table of basic adjective endings. So we can use this table whenever the case is made explicit by the article. So to take the first row again, der makes explicit the case, masculine nominative, so there's no need for the adjective to deviate from the table spelling outlined here. Here also, there's no need, it's made explicit. So what do we use? Accusative masculine, we use en, no need to deviate. In fact, there's no need to deviate for any of these spellings. The definite articles are always explicit about the case, so there's never any need to deviate. You can just repeat this table of spelling for the adjectives for all of the adjectives that follow a definite article. For the indefinite and possessive adjectives, we talked about stubs here, here, and here. It's not clear that these articles have the gender, the case or gender of these articles. So we have spelling added to the adjective to make it clear. Otherwise, it follows the same pattern. We've talked about the em ending or the m ending. This is repeated here. And when we have dative masculine, we expect en, dative masculine en, so otherwise it's following this table. When there's no article, then we have to work a lot harder with adjectives because we have to have something to showcase. So here you see the er ending that's common to the masculine, that is standard to the masculine nominative. There's no article, so we have to do something beyond, these e or en endings to show our case. So we're showing it's got an er on the end, and the common ending for the neutral with an s. Here we have an es. Common for the feminine. Here we have an e. Common for the plural. Here we have an e. We talked about en being common for the masculine accusative. Here's our en. And otherwise, accusative follows the same pattern we've already talked about. Common ending for the dative masculine and dative neuter is em. Here we have em. And the feminine er. Here we have er. Here we have 4 exceptions that don't follow our standard rules per se. Here we have 4 examples that don't follow the standard rules. Apart from these 2, where you would expect en to show plural and n on the end to show the noun is in the plural. And here you would expect an er. Here's our en and our n. Here's our er. Here's our n and our r. So really, we can take just these 2. There's nothing really to do except to learn to remember that these are exceptions. So for the masculine gender, it's heißen Kaffees. For the neuter genitive, it's frischen Brotes. This just has to be remembered separately. Pronouns. These are very important words to learn. We'll be using these very, very often. This table should straightforwardly be memorized. There's nothing for it really. You just have to sit there and work away at it. A couple of things to point out. This is the same table you would see in English. Here we've got the word it. However, while we would say you and you in the singular, here the German has the word du. No, that's French. Du. And the word ihr. So this is to say you, one person, and this is to say you group of people. The next thing to point out is the word sie. This word works overtime, fulfills too many functions, and it can be quite confusing. So the word sie means she. It also means they, and it also means you formal. So this is you formal for one person or for many people. This is a particular spelling just to show, this is a polite form, just to show respect. English does not have this at all. It's always you, very easy, just like it's always you for the singular and the plural. However, German has a particular spelling to show respect or politeness. So sie is working in three instances just in the nominative. For the accusative, we have some of the same distinctions. Well, the same distinctions. Again, we have sie, and sie, working as described before. And we also have you, a particular spelling, and another particular spelling for plural. Sorry, you singular here and you plural here. Dative, you have the same idea. Here's the singular you, here's the plural. Here we're no longer using the word sie, now we're using two different words. She becomes ihr, they becomes ihnen, and the polite form becomes ihnen as well. This is very confusing because this is in the third person to talk about they, third person plural, and this is in the second person, whether plural or singular. So this should be underlined in red. And for the genitive, it collapses back together. So, okay, first of all, we'll start with you. So, same here, a particular spelling for the plural, particular spelling for the singular. And the formal form, the third person plural form, and the third person singular form, all ihre. One thing to note is for the formal, it's always taking a capital. For the respectful form, this won't be heard in conversation, but it will be noticeable when you read written German. So this nice addition when you're reading to help narrow things down. You've got this word that really does a bit too much. Okay.